it's great to be joined by Brandon Anderson. He does absolutely incredible work over there at Action Network, and much like myself, has D3 running in his veins. I am a UW Oshkosh graduate, and I believe that Brandon is from Wheaton College out there in the great state of Illinois, and it's always a pleasure to have a fellow D3 alum aboard. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Stag Bowl is this weekend. We got North Central and Mount Union. I don't have a cap for that one, but I can't wait to watch the game on Friday night for the D3 title.
And typically we do get a spread like 24, 48 hours in advance as well. Mount Union, they had been down for a few years, but once again, they are very, very resurgent. And we've seen guys such as Cecil Shorts and Pierre Garcon come out of that program as well. So that is going to be a lot of fun to take a look at. And it's also fun to be able to take a look at this week's slate in the NFL, and I do think that there are some fascinating matchups, and this one jumps to mind for me because it's backup quarterback week, and with the Pittsburgh Steelers, we saw Kenny Pickett go out of the game on Sunday, so that caused for a little bit of a line move in this one against the Carolina Panthers. Panthers are currently a 2 to 2.5 point favorite as I'm seeing it in terms of this game after they were more like a 3-point underdog on the look-ahead line with a total between 38 and 38.5. What do you make out of this game? Because I do think that, assuming that we don't see Kenny Pickett out there on the field, it is a little bit of a drop-off to Mitchell Trubisky. I don't know if it's this big of a drop-off, though. This seems a little bit overreactionary.
I agree. I think that this line reacted too strongly. I think people are trying to get excited because, oh man, could the Panthers make the playoffs? Steve Wilks. Look, the Panthers are just in a terrible division. Like, we don't need to make too much of this. They played bully ball against Seattle. They ran it right up the gut. Guess who you can't do that against? The Steel Curtain. You've never in my entire life been able to just run the ball at Pittsburgh and punch them in the mouth and get away with it. You can do that against Seattle, not Pittsburgh, especially not TJ Watt Pittsburgh. 6 games this year with TJ Watt back on the field. Pittsburgh ranks 3rd on defense, top 5 against the pass and the run by DVOA. So I think this team is still underrated. And look, for a lot of teams, when the quarterback goes out, you got to downgrade them. I'm honestly not sure Trubisky is a downgrade. Kenny Pickett, they're playing more conservative that way. Hopefully, Trubisky isn't throwing 3 interceptions every game. But I love Pittsburgh here because the guy you want on the field is TJ Watt. That's the guy that the line moves for Pittsburgh, not the quarterback, not right now. So I think Carolina is fake better these recent weeks. Like, the numbers haven't really gone up a lot. The schedule just was a little softer. Pittsburgh is actually better. They're defending well. And another stat that I waited on, because I almost took Pittsburgh heading into the weekend. Glad I didn't, because the line flipped. I thought it might, because when you look at this, if Pittsburgh loses to the Ravens and then plays the following week, they're 11-5 against the spread the next game. After they beat the Ravens instead, they're only 6-12 against the spread. So you like Pittsburgh in the underdog spot. Week 5 forward, Mike Tomlin is a perfect 6-0 against the spread as an underdog after losing the division, and he's won all 6 of those games outright. So I love the spot here. Sam Darnold, you're making Sam a favorite? No, thank you. Give me Pittsburgh, my favorite pick of the week. I like the money line. I think Steelers get the job done.
Yep, when it comes to Sam Darnold, never necessarily a guy that I've wanted to back before, and laying points with him is not a time in which I want to be starting either. This is a question of whether or not the Steelers are going to be making my card, because the Carolina Panthers certainly are not, and right now that's one that I'm starting to lean towards. This is one where I feel like it really is underdog or pass at the current number. If it bumps down, then maybe I would reconsider, but that would be the Chiefs and the Texans. Texans are 2 touchdown home underdogs in this game with a total that has actually gone up in 49. I recognize that Davis Mills is not necessarily the world's greatest quarterback. He's better than Kyle Allen, though. Why they were starting Kyle Allen, I really don't know. But fortunately, we've got Davis Mills back there. And with the Kansas City Chiefs, I just can't lay big numbers with this team because year in and year out, we have seen them just not be able to cover north of a touchdown spread very consistently. I'm not sure if you're on the same wavelength as myself, but this is a spot where I don't know if I fire in on the Texans, but it's one where I just can't trust the Chiefs laying this big of a number based on what I've seen in the past.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's Texans or pass. You got to play the number here. You're not playing the Texans. You're playing the plus 14. Home underdog, 14 points this late in the season. All the trends here love the number. Not the Texans. Nobody loves the Texans, but it's the double-digit underdog. It's the late season huge underdog. Lovie Smith as a big underdog. There's all sorts of trends in ATS that go in Houston's favor. You're going to feel great about it. So don't go crazy with it. Pat Mahomes could just come out and drop 4 touchdowns in the first half, and you'd be like, oh, well, why did I bet on the Texans against Mahomes? It's playing the number. We did it against Dallas last week. I played the money line against Dallas, so heartbreak hotel for me. I was right there on my plus 1,100, but yeah, I agree. Texans are pass for that one.
Yeah, this is a game that probably doesn't deserve a whole heck of a lot more of an explanation than that because, man, this is going to be one that going to be a little bit more grody. This game, I think, is going to have a lot more intrigue because the Seahawks, they got off to a really nice start to the season. They have cooled down ever since then, and we're seeing people react to what we saw in start number 1 for our good friend Brock Purdy, as right now with the 49ers, it's a split. You're seeing about 50% of books at a -3 with the 49ers, about 50% they're at a -3.5 with a total of 43.5. I do think that for Seattle, we've got to be keeping in mind this is a big-time home field advantage. Traveling on a short week is not easy. Certainly, the 49ers are in a little bit of better form, but I've got trepidations here. I've yet to fire in on either of these teams. Have you made a decision either way?
I have, but I've made it with trepidation. If you've watched over the last 2 months, I've called myself Seattle Island. I've just been on Seattle Island for months now. I thought this team was good early in the year, and we rode them. We got a lot of wins out of it, and I've started to fade. And I gotta say, the island took on water. I kind of bailed off the island in the last couple of weeks. It feels like the island had its stand, but I think I'm back. I'm back for one more last stand because, look, like you said, you framed it pretty well. This is a must-win game. Like Seattle's playing for their season right now. They were looking good. They're in the playoff hunt. Now they're fading. Chiefs are up next in Kansas City. This is the spot. You're home with where it's one of the last real home field advantages with a rookie 7th-round quarterback making his road debut start on a short week, so less time to prep for a Thursday night game. No Debo in this game. Season on the line, and I want to get that plus 3.5. You want the hook because you can always cover, even if it's ugly, if you get the 3-point loss, maybe a backdoor cover. Look, at Action Network, we have a system called Bet Labs where we can track all these different kind of trends against the spread. Cal Shanahan, not good as a favorite. Pete Carroll, great on short rest, great after a loss, great as a division underdog. So I have all these systems set up. I have 14 trends in favor of Seattle in this one, 0 for the 49ers. It is the biggest difference in trends I've seen the entire season. I don't love it. Seattle does not feel good to bet on. The island is underwater, but I am going back for one more stand. Thursday night, I think this is Seattle's last stand. I got to be on them.
Yep, if you're looking at recency, it will put you on the 49ers if you look at all the trends and just the way that rookie quarterbacks in general. We've never seen a rookie quarterback ever make the Super Bowl, and it's very rare that these guys are able to bust through and have big rookie seasons. That is something to keep in mind as well. And yeah, how about if we go to the other primetime game? Because this is one in which I don't think I could trust either of these teams on this line. It is the Packers and the Rams. The Rams are currently a 7-point underdog. Total on this game is 39.5. Maybe it's just the Wisconsin and me speaking, but the Packers, it feels like they can't cover against anyone other than the Chicago Bears. And I don't know if I want to be resting my faith in Baker Mayfield, who's been with the Rams for a little bit over a week now, and I feel like that might have been one of the flukiest drives we've ever seen against the Raiders.
Yeah, I think so too. You definitely don't want to have your money on Baker here because we saw how bad it looked the whole rest of the game to need that drive. Honestly, the numbers say the Packers are a pretty quality team. I know the results haven't been there. I know that they only have 2 wins by more than 3 points, and it's both Bears games. But Aaron Rodgers at home, Aaron Rodgers after the bye, 9-3-1 against the spread. Rodgers at home in prime time, 23-11-1, 68% cover rate. So the Packers are pretty good. The Packers offense has been solid. The defense is not great, but the thing that the Packers are terrible at is stopping the run. The Rams can't run. They can't run block, and they don't run at all. I think the matchup sets up pretty well. The Rams are terrible. The Packers are disappointing, but not terrible. The numbers say the Packers are still kind of a decent team. You don't want to go crazy on this one because the seasons are over here, but I like the Packers, especially get the -7.
Yep, and with the Green Bay Packers as well, they have finally found a wide receiver for our good friend Aaron Rodgers and
That's
Christian
right.
Watson, who's been able to do a very good job. We're taking a look at it in terms of futures market, in terms of rookie of the year, and we got a lot of backup quarterbacks that are going to be taking center stage this week, and we're going to be continuing with Brandon Anderson of Action Network, taking a look at some of these next here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. Always great to be joined by Brandon Anderson over there at Action Network. And as we know, it's just absolutely insane to take a look at some of these games this week. It feels like, and we talked about this a little bit off air, it's what teams do you have the fewest issues with rather than teams where it's like, yes, I am fired up to be able to back them. And it feels like this game is one of those as well. It's Ravens and the Browns, with the Browns, they're anywhere between a 2.5 to a 3-point favorite. This opened up at 3. We've seen a few 2.5s come onto the board with a total that has nosedive to 38 and 38.5. And I think it's fair to say both teams have quarterback issues, because with the Ravens, no question, it's every single quarterback that they've got is injured right now, which that's not great. But also with the Cleveland Browns, they really upgraded this team after Deshaun Watson came into the fold. And I liked Deshaun Watson in 2023. This man hasn't played football in nearly 2 years, and now we gave him a big giant boost, and I'm not sure if I agree with that either.
Yeah, I think Cleveland has been upgraded here on the lines, and I'm not sure they should have been. Watson has been mostly terrible so far, and honestly, Cleveland's offense was pretty good the rest of the season. Jacoby Brissett wasn't a superstar. He didn't have the ceiling what Cleveland hopes Watson will bring, but the offense was humming. The run game was good. They were passing it when they needed to. Now they kind of can't do anything. I believe they've scored 16 offensive points in 8 quarters with Deshaun Watson, which I'll do the math for you. 2 points a quarter is not going to get the job done. I like Baltimore on the road here. I think it's a good underdog spot for them. John Harbaugh as a division underdog, 17-7-1 against the spread, 71%. And Kevin Stefanski in the division, 4-12 against the spread, 1-7 as a division favorite in Stefanski's lifetime. So it's not a good spot for Cleveland here. I just can't make Deshaun Watson a favorite. It's certainly against a Ravens team that's a good team. They're a playoff team with at least a playoff defense right now. Roquan Smith, once he came over in that trade, the Ravens have the #1 run defense in the NFL. To me, that's the key thing here. We know the Ravens want to run. We know the Browns want to run. I think the quarterbacks actually end up being mostly irrelevant here. Both teams should want to run, but the Browns' run defense, terrible, has not stopped anyone all year. J.K. Dobbins is back. I think he has a big game. On the other side, though, Roquan Smith and that #1 run defense, I think that's the difference here. So I like the Ravens. I wish I knew who was playing quarterback. I would certainly feel a little better, but I like getting the +3 while it's out there. From week 14 forward, the last couple of decades, AFC North division underdogs, 41-22 against the spread, 65%. So I think it's a great spot to back Baltimore here.
Yep, with Baltimore, certainly you've got a lot of question marks at the quarterback spot, but you don't have a lot of questions elsewhere with them. Meanwhile, for the Browns, it does feel like, as of right now, it's been a little bit of tough sledding with Deshaun Watson in terms of the offense. I recognize that they got that win against the Texans, but boy, that was a pretty ugly game that he played, and this is a game that I think is going to be a little bit more of a thing of beauty, as we've got the Chargers and the Titans. For the Titans, they started out the year very, very strong. It's been a little bit of a decline for them. Meanwhile, for the Chargers, it feels like they are finally getting healthy, and when you saw what they were able to do on Sunday night, they are now finding themselves as 3-point favorites. Where do you stand on this game? Because I think the big key for this game is Derrick Henry. If the Titans are able to get him going, which has not been the case the last few weeks, they've got a good chance to be able to win this game outright. If the Chargers bottle him up, it's going to be tough sledding for them.
Yeah, it's an interesting matchup because the Titans, defensively, the Titans stop the run pretty well and funnel to the pass. Well, the Chargers can't run anyway, so they are happy to do all the passing. Meanwhile, the Chargers defense can't stop the run, and that's really all the Titans want to do. So you have two defenses that are kind of playing to the strength of each other's offense. So that could be interesting here. Derrick Henry actually had a great first half against Jacksonville. He just only had 2 yards in the second half, but I think Henry could have a big game. I wrote a column at Action Network last week about season leaders. Derrick Henry, I think, has a chance to steal the rushing crown here. He's got this game against a bad run D. They play Houston next week, and they still have Jacksonville to close the season. I think Henry could have some big games. His yards per carry goes up each month of the year. So it's a good spot for them. I like Tennessee here. I just think I don't trust the Chargers a whole lot yet. They have 7 wins, but 6 by 1 score. 4 of the wins don't even cover the 3-point spread here. If you look at them against playoff teams or potential playoff teams, they're only 1-4 on the year. I just don't feel like the Chargers have proven that they're real favorites yet. And you said they're getting healthy. Well, the offense is getting healthy. Keenan Allen and Mike Williams are getting healthy, but the line is still bad, and the defense is still bad. The injuries on the defense are huge. Tennessee's defensive injuries are huge also, so it's a mess on the injury front on both sides there. But Mike Vrabel, when he is a 3-point underdog or more, 21-8 against the spread, and he has won 8 of the last 12 outright in that spot. So I just think the script sets up pretty well. Tennessee starts out these games well. They get Henry going, get on the front foot. And Herbert, the Chargers, they haven't played well from behind or late in the game. I feel like Tennessee is the side you trust just a little bit more here.
With the Tennessee Titans, it's been a little bit of a topsy-turvy year, but even with their decline in the last few weeks, they've still been one of the most profitable teams in the NFL. They've done a good job of being able to cover quite a few spreads. All about, can they get Derrick Henry going, in my opinion, in this one. And for the Minnesota Vikings, is regression finally catching up with them, as we saw them go down against the Lions? It was a game where a lot of people were like, well, you've got a sub-500 team against a Vikings team that lost just twice, and of course it was the Lions that was able to come out victorious here. Now the Vikings head back home against the Colts, and our 4-point favorite total on this game is 48.5. And with the Colts, in terms of their talent itself, I think the biggest question I've got with this game is Jeff Saturday going to be able to put them into winning spots? Because I think that that's such a big key with this game. You've got Matt Ryan, who he pretty much got placed onto waivers, and that was just a failed experiment for the Colts. So a lot to take a look at here. Where do you stand in terms of Vikings versus Colts? Because I feel like if this line were 3, I'd feel much better about the Minnesota Vikings. At 4, I feel like this is almost no man's land.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And it does feel, normally when there's a line in this range, you kind of want to wait it out because the line probably gets to 5.5 or 6, or it gets down to 3.5. They're kind of waiting for us to decide for them, I think. 4 of Minnesota's 10 wins don't cover the 4.5 right now, and the Vikings only have 1 win by more than 1 score.
That was the Packers week 1.
Yeah, exactly. It's been a minute. So if you like the Vikings, best case scenario, you're probably sweating out a backdoor cover situation here. So I think if you want to play this one, this is a Saturday, the early game on Saturday, I think you might be able to play this live and maybe get both sides, because the Colts are 2-11 in the first half against the spread. They have not been a good first half team at all. They started slow all year, whereas the Vikings are horrendous in the third quarter. Offense and defense atrocious in the third quarter. So you might be able to get a Vikings quick start and then kind of a Colts comeback, be able to play it live on both sides. A couple of numbers I found interesting here. Matt Ryan, when he comes off the bye week, 9-5 against the spread, so 64%. Kirk Cousins, when he faces an opponent off the bye week with a little extra time to prepare for him, 2-8 against the spread. So to me, I lean Colts here. I agree with you. I think if it was 3, maybe a little different, but I think the line's a little too high, so you gotta like the Colts.
And we've talked a lot about sides. How about if we go to a total that you like in the Giants versus the Commanders? It feels like we had this game 2 weeks ago. Oh, wait, we did have this game 2 weeks ago, only now the Commanders are the home team, and they're between a 4.5 to a 5-point favorite. This is a game where, once again, if this were more of like a field goal line or if we had a touchdown line, I could take one side or the other. Right now, it's sort of in no man's land, so this is a little bit tough from the side, but in terms of the total, we're seeing at 40 and 40.5. Both of these offenses have been relatively anemic. Both of these offenses don't have great quarterbacks. I just don't see a lot of points being scored in this game. Not sure if you disagree, but this feels like a game which versus 17 wins.
Yeah, I agree. I would lean Giants here if I'm taking a side, kind of similar to the game we just did with Colts-Vikings, but I love the under here. One of my favorite plays of the week. I loved the under 2 weeks ago. We got the under 40.5, and man, did we ever sweat that one out. If you remember, we tied 20-20. We hit overtime and somehow hit my under, so can't complain the rest of the day after that one. But both teams here, top 6 rushing the passer, both teams bottom 6 protecting the passer. That screams under to me because you're not going to have time in the passing game. And there's a whole bunch of trends. You look at week 14 and later division games, total at 40 to 47 is 56% to the under. Outdoor games, 62% to the under. Home favorite under 7, 57% to the under. And 36 to 40 point total, 67% to the under. So a lot of trends here. I don't see many points. I'll take the under.
Absolutely, and we'll be taking a few unders in college basketball next as we take a look at the Wednesday board right here on the Greg Peterson Experience on the flip side on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.